Welcome back, gentlemen. I hope that you danced over your wife all week long, rejoicing in who God gave you. We're going to pick up one more verse as we continue to walk through Genesis 2. Like I said, we learned everything we need about God in the first 11 chapters of Genesis. We're going to get a lot farther than that, but we're going to continue slow walking through Genesis 2 this week. Genesis 2:24. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and cling or hold fast to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. I've seen this problem go both ways in America, by the way, right? So some men fail to leave their parents, some women fail to leave their parents. Either way, it wrecks marriages. Guys, we've got to figure this out. Gentlemen, if you are a mama's boy and she is working in your life and she's meddling in your family, we got to nip that in the bud. The two shall become one flesh. That doesn't include you and your mama anymore. Now, you can't force your wife to leave her parents. You can only invite her into something better. And the way you do that is by showing her that your family is a safe, healthy place to be, where she doesn't have to run home to her mama every time she gets hurt by you. You are a safe man who she can trust, and so then she can cling more easily to you. And one of the ways that we do that is by establishing some new family traditions together. We don't always have to do what our parents did or the way our parents did it. We can do our own thing. And so you and your wife need to come up with some of your own family traditions. In the olden days, when a man and a woman got married, she would leave her parents and she would move in with her in-laws. But in the olden days, he would build a room onto his parents' house. How would you like to be living with your parents, guys? I wouldn't. He would work on it, get it all set up. His dad would look at the room, and when the room was done, his dad would say to him, "All right, son, you can go get your bride." His dad had to approve the building and the place he was going to bring his wife home to, because he knew once the wife got there, they weren't going to be doing construction anymore. And so he had to get everything set up so that his wife could come live in his family's household. So how do we do that today? What difference does it make? So our wives aren't moving with our parents anymore. How do we set up our own household, our own family traditions? Well, I don't know about you, but there are some things in my family we had to change. When I first got married, my in-laws wanted me to bring the kids up there on Christmas Day so that they could be there when they open their stockings and their presents. And then my parents wanted me to go to their house on Christmas Day so they could have Christmas with their kids as well. Both of my siblings and my wife's siblings were unmarried, so they were already at home with the grandparents on Christmas Day. We would be the only ones missing if we weren't. And so we drug our 2-week-old daughter an hour and a half to go see my in-laws, and then 3 hours to go see my parents, and then 2 hours or an hour and a half home on Christmas Day. It was miserable. Ugh. And so after 2 years of that, I said to my wife, no more. We're doing our own family traditions. We can do grandparents some other day of the week. We'll do it a weekend later. We'll do it for the New Year's. I don't care, but Christmas Day is our sacred space. We are starting traditions with our own kids. So my wife and I, we put our head together and said, what do we want our Christmas tradition to look like? Well, we decided what we wanted. My wife really came up with the idea. She wanted all of us to get together and to read the Christmas story before we open presents. I said, that's awesome. I'd like to have a day of just sitting around playing games and enjoying life with the kids. She said, that's awesome. And so guess what our Christmas tradition became? Reading the Christmas story and playing games. At some point down the road, that even modified into my wife saying, I don't want to cook on Christmas, so let's do a finger food buffet all day long, and we'll just sit around and snack. That's great. So for Christmas, I get to make myself sick on shrimp and caramel corn. And in the end, grandmas and grandpas, they accepted it. They knew we had to create our own family traditions. And so the new tradition with our families became doing Christmas the weekend after or Christmas on New Year's Day. And that's okay. We were able to work it all in. We, Heather and I, husband and wife, decided what we wanted our new family traditions to be. Guys, that's just a Christmas example. But birthdays could be the same thing, special holidays, whatever it is. Even some family traditions like, do we eat supper together around the table every night? Is our family known for watching TV and football on Sunday? Or is that our day of rest? One of the other family traditions that I had growing up was my dad would go to work at 7 a.m. He would come home for supper at 6 p.m. Supper was on the table at 6:15, and by 6:45, he was gone back to work. Sometimes he would come home about midnight from work in the evenings, and I would lay in bed and wake up until I'd hear the front door shut, because I just wanted to know my dad was home safe. And so this was his routine. This was what I grew up with as a normal household routine. So when I would use that experience of mine as an excuse to working long hours as an adult, what I was really saying was, I want my old family tradition to be my new family pattern. That didn't work for my wife. And honestly, I'm grateful it didn't. I was missing my kids growing up by working so many hours. And so with my wife's encouragement, we had to create a new family tradition in our life. What would an effective and accommodating work-life balance look like? Maybe your family grew up working in the field all day. I mean, I know in farmers, when it's harvest time, it's go time, right? I understand. I get it. But you got to decide, what is your family pattern and tradition going to look like? Just because it worked for your parents doesn't mean it's going to work for your wife. Doesn't mean it's going to work for your kids. Doesn't mean it should work for you. So take some time and think through, what are the traditions of your family look like? You gentlemen need to leave the traditions and patterns and habits of your parents and create your own. No more using your parents as an excuse for the things that you do. Create your own family patterns, your own family traditions. Be intentional about it. Make them what you want to be. You're going to get out of this life what you put into it. And so guys, be intentional this week at developing a pattern you want your life to emulate. So this week, gentlemen, there are two things I want you to do. Number one, you got to memorize Genesis 2:24. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and his mother and cling to his wife. Number two, you got to make a list of all the things you are clinging to in your parents' way of life, their parents' patterns of work and family raising and parent responsibilities and chores, cooking, cleaning, putting the kids to bed, bathing them. I don't know. What was it that your parents did that your wife doesn't think is acceptable? You need to sit down with your wife this week and come up with a pattern of who does what, what's required when, how's work and home life going to balance, what are the patterns and traditions we need to erase from our parents and start new with each other. Do things different, do things better than your parents did, guys. Starts this week. Memorize Genesis 2:24. Make that list, talk about it with your wife, and find some common ground together to build the marriage and the life you want, not the one you grew up with. Love you guys. See you next week.